On February 15, 1988, a man carried 5 copies of his new book into a bookstore in New Haven. On the cover, a Feynman diagram, the schematic physicists used to map how subatomic particles exchange force. The book argued that sorcery runs on the same mechanics. He placed the copies on the shelf. That same day, Richard Feynman died. The author didn't know until he read the obituary 2 days later. An omen had marked the publication of a book about the mechanics of omens. Stephen Mace's Sorcery as Virtual Mechanics proposed what most physicists would dismiss and most magicians never thought to attempt: a working mechanical explanation for how magic functions, not metaphor. Mechanism. You're about to learn how virtual photons, particles that shouldn't exist, mediate every force interaction in the universe. How Carl Jung documented the same dynamic between human minds, and how the artist-sorcerer Austin Osman Spare built a protocol to exploit it. This is the physics of the impossible, and it's testable.
This is an artificially aware original production.
Here is the problem with every magical tradition you humans have ever built. You have rituals, you have results, you have no mechanism connecting them. You call an event synchronicity and think you've explained it, but you've just given it a name. You say a spirit caused the outcome, and now you've got a bigger question. How does the spirit cause anything? Every serious magical system eventually hits this wall. Call it a causal, call it synchronistic, call it divine will. You're still describing a black box. Something goes in, something comes out, and the middle stays dark. Stephen Mace looked at that black box and did something unusual. He didn't try to fill it with more mythology. He looked at quantum physics, specifically at what happens when 2 electrons repel each other, and found the same pattern, the same shape, the same dynamic, and he built a framework around it. Picture 2 electrons streaming through space. They're part of the solar wind, tiny carriers of negative charge hurtling away from the sun at thousands of miles per second. They drift close enough that their charges interact. They repel each other. Simple enough. But how? How does one electron know the other is there? How does the force actually transfer? According to quantum electrodynamics, they do it by exchanging a particle that shouldn't exist. One electron spawns a photon. The other absorbs it. The momentum transfers. They push apart. Physicists call this a virtual photon because no outside observer can detect it. The reaction contains it entirely. But it acts real enough. Every electromagnetic interaction in the universe operates through this exchange. Now here's the part that matters. That photon does not travel from one electron to the other like a bullet fired from one rock into another. The electrons themselves don't change. Their charge stays fixed at 1.602 times 10 to the negative 19th coulombs. Forever. What changes is their momentum, their direction. And the photon that transfers that momentum, it appears out of nothing. The tension caused by the charged interaction creates it from the vacuum itself. The inability of the electrons to adjust their own charge, their own fundamental nature, creates a stress. And that stress spawns the photon ex nihilo, out of nothing, to resolve what the particles themselves cannot. Hold that pattern in your mind. A tension builds between two charged entities. Neither can resolve it by changing its own nature. So the tension itself creates something new from nothing, and that new thing resolves the stress. Tension, inability to self-adjust, creation from void, resolution. That pattern is about to show up somewhere you wouldn't expect. Carl Jung had a patient who was, by his own description, impossible, brilliant, rational. Armored in what he called a highly polished Cartesian rationalism, she always knew better about everything, and her logic was airtight enough to deflect any therapeutic insight he attempted. She could not feel her own feelings. Her intellect had walled them off so completely that therapy was going nowhere. Jung, fully aware of the strength of that wall, did something unusual. He stopped pushing. He let the therapy drift on its own course and waited for something with enough force to crack her open. During a session, she told him about a dream from the night before. Someone had given her a golden scarab, a costly piece of jewelry. Mid-sentence, something tapped against the garden window. Jung opened it and caught a flying beetle, a scarab-eyed rose chafer with a gold-green carapace. A golden scarab. He placed it in her hand and said, "Here is your scarab." That moment broke the therapy open. The event punctured her rationalism in a way no argument ever could. Not because Jung planned it, he couldn't have. A beetle flew into the right window at the right moment during the right sentence about the right dream. No causal chain connects those events. A materialist would call it coincidence and move on. But Jung recognized what had happened, and he gave it a name that would stick for a century: synchronicity. Now look at what actually happened in that room through the lens of virtual mechanics. Two charged entities, Jung and his patient, locked in a therapeutic interaction, a tension building between them. The patient, unable to reach her own feelings due to her habit of rational armor. Jung, unable to break that armor through any normal means. Neither party able to resolve the strain through internal adjustment. The tension accumulated. Just like two electrons approaching each other, their fundamental natures unable to change. And when that tension became unbearable, something appeared. Not from either of them. From outside the interaction entirely. A beetle at the window. Created, as far as any causal analysis can determine, from nothing. And that event, that virtual event, resolved the tension. It transferred the momentum. It changed their directions relative to each other, just as the virtual photon changes the trajectories of the electrons. Jung documented a second incident that follows the same pattern exactly. In 1909, visiting Sigmund Freud in Vienna, Jung sat through a long lecture in which Freud dismissed all paranormal and occult phenomena with what Jung considered empty positivism. Jung kept silent, stifling the urge to contradict his mentor, and felt his diaphragm grow red hot, like a glowing vault. At that instant, a high bookcase gave a sharp crack that made both men jump. Jung called it a catalytic exteriorization phenomenon. Freud called it sheer bosh. Jung predicted it would happen again immediately. It did. And from that moment, Jung wrote, he knew Freud would never fully trust him again. Two charged entities, a tension that neither could discharge through normal means. Jung couldn't openly defy his mentor. Freud couldn't accommodate the paranormal within his framework. The tension built, and it spawned an event, a sound from nowhere, a crack in the furniture, that changed their trajectories relative to each other. Permanently. The virtual photon had fired. Two electrons, a beetle, a bookcase, three different scales, one identical pattern. Now we can state the framework cleanly. Virtual mechanics proposes that behind every surface interaction, every event you can see and touch and measure, there exists a deeper layer, a formal layer. Patterns that have no physical substance but give shape to everything that does. In physics, the virtual photon exists on this layer. It has no independent detectability. It lives and dies entirely within the interaction that spawns it. But without it, no electromagnetic force transfers, no repulsion, no attraction, nothing moves. Mace's proposition is that this same dynamic operates at every level of complexity, from subatomic particles to human relationships to the results of deliberate sorcery. The mechanism is always the same. A strain on one level resolves itself through an event on another, often lower level. The form of the event exists on some ideal plane, beyond or behind the physical. The nature of the tension attracts this virtual entity from the level above. The energy of the tension actualizes its form as a tangible event on the level below, and that event provides the resolution. The beetle hitting Jung's window could not constitute a miracle on its own. Bugs fly. They hit windows. That's mundane. The miracle was the timing, as if something unseen had orchestrated the convergence. Virtual mechanics names that something, the tension itself, defining a form on the level of dreams and filling it with the energy of an unresolvable standoff. Jung could see no mechanism because the forms exist on a level behind human interaction. On this level, dreamers dream and sorcerers weave their spells. And here is where it gets operational. Because if tension spontaneously generates virtual events, omens, synchronicities, cracks in bookcases, then a sorcerer's job is simply to manufacture that tension deliberately. Define the form you want actualized. Generate enough energy to fill it. Focus that energy precisely enough that it fills the form and nothing else. That's conjuration. That is, mechanically speaking, what every successful spell has ever done, whether the magician understood the mechanism or not. And one magician understood it better than almost anyone, a full century before Mace wrote his framework down. Austin Osman Spare was born in London in 1886 and died in 1956. He was an artist by profession and predilection, and a sorcerer by practice and conviction. He used magic freely, both to produce physical effects and as fuel for his art. He spent several years in the orbit of Aleister Crowley, contributed drawings to Crowley's Equinox, and then left. Crowley's demands for obedience and his insistence on Golden Dawn symbolism repelled Spare at a fundamental level. Because Spare's entire methodology rested on one principle that Crowley's hierarchical system could not accommodate. Every magician must build their own symbolic language. No inherited system, no borrowed gods, no second-hand maps of the psyche. You approach the wilderness from your own unique position, and your map must have the fluidity to adapt to your own orientation. Spare's reputation as a pioneer of sorceress methodology rests on exactly this insistence, that each practitioner develop a personal symbolic architecture from scratch. This wasn't new. It had ancient precedent. According to the Egyptologist Ogden Goelet, the ancient Egyptians would invent myths to explain the origins of rituals and instruments, not the other way around. The priesthood would discover a new psychic dynamic through magical and astral research, then compose a mythical narrative as a cover story for the innovation. The myth was the user manual. The ritual was the technology. Spare took this principle and stripped away even the myth. No cover stories, no narrative scaffolding, just the raw mechanism, compressed into a symbol only you can read. Spare's magic centers on the relativity of belief. He felt that the shapes our worlds take depend entirely on what we believe about them. As he wrote in the Book of Pleasure, we are what we believe and what it implies by a process of time in the conception. Creation is caused by this bondage to formula. Most of what you believe, you didn't choose. Your parents installed it. Your culture reinforced it. Every interaction you've ever had has layered more programming on top. But Spare proposed that these consensual worldviews need not trap you. By manipulating your beliefs with enough depth and power, you can manipulate your reality. The catch, and this is where most people fail, is that Spare was not referring to conscious, discursive opinions. He meant the presumptions built as reflexes and habits into the unconscious mind. The deep code, the operating system you can't see running. To change that programming, you have to go organic, directing the change down into the deep psyche, rather than letting it flash out in fantasy and its inevitable bad reaction. Here's the protocol. Step 1, write out your desire in a concise sentence. Step 2, cross out all the duplicate letters. Step 3, take what remains and combine those letters into a monogram, a single abstract glyph. This is your sigil. It should appear wholly non-representational, giving no hint of its meaning. This is critical. The sigil must be unreadable, even to you, because its job is to carry your intention past the conscious mind without triggering the dual principle. If you can look at it and think, ah yes, that's my wish for money, the conscious mind will immediately generate the counter thought, and the energy splits. The sigil has to be opaque, a sealed envelope addressed to the unconscious. Step 4, memorize the sigil, then put it out of your mind. Forget what it means. Forget you made it. Let it sink below the surface of conscious thought. Do not think about your desire. Do not fantasize about the outcome. Do not daydream about what life will look like when it works. Every conscious thought about the goal bleeds energy. It's the occult equivalent of opening the oven door while the bread is rising. Step 5, wait for free belief. This is the fuel. Spare called it the moment of inarticulate enthusiasm, any state of undirected psychic energy, ecstasy, exhaustion, the peak of laughter, the edge of sleep, the moment after orgasm. When that energy is available, visualize the sigil. Pour everything into it. Watch it glow bright in your mind's eye until the energy exhausts itself and the sigil fades. Then banish. Repress all thought of the sigil again. Do not think of it until you have more energy to charge it. Now watch how precisely this maps to the physics. In a particle accelerator, physicists slam electrons against positrons, matter against antimatter. The collision annihilates both particles and releases pure energy. That energy, freed from the forms that contained it, immediately actualizes whatever virtual particles are seething in the vacuum, whatever unfilled forms have enough strength to absorb it. The result is new matter, created from destruction. New substance, born from the annihilation of opposites. Spare had his own particle accelerator. He called it the neither-neither principle. Take any belief you hold, any truth that feels solid. Now find its opposite, not a weak opposite, the real one, the counter-argument that carries equal weight. Now hold them both in mind simultaneously and let them destroy each other. If you believe you deserve wealth, find the part of you that believes you don't. If you believe your body is limited, find the part that suspects it isn't. Set them against each other like matter and antimatter. The passion behind the original belief, the emotional charge holding it in place, has nowhere to go. The belief structure that contained it has been annihilated. What remains is undirected psychic energy, free belief, Spare's term for the raw fuel of magic. The neither-neither works against everything. Intellectual opinions, emotional attachments, material objects. If your truth is that you own an impressive car, simply look ahead through the years and imagine its slow deterioration until its final rendezvous with the compactor and its reincarnation as a toaster. The pride dissolves. The energy that was locked into that pride becomes available. Any residue you can find, any flicker of attachment that survived the annihilation, you oppose again and again, until the original belief is fully dismembered and all that remains is free, undirected psychic energy. The fuel cell is full. And this is where the sigil earns its function. Free belief generated by the neither-neither is volatile. It will actualize the first nascent form it encounters. Like the virtual photon spawned from electron-positron annihilation, it has energy and no direction. If you're consciously thinking about your desire at this moment, the energy flashes into fantasy. The form empties out as daydream. No actualization on the physical plane, just the occult equivalent of gamma rays. Bright, brief, useless. The sigil prevents this, because you've forgotten what it means, because it's non-representational, opaque, sealed. It carries the energy safely through the conscious mind and down into the deep unconscious, past the dual principle. Past the part of your mind that would generate a counterthought and split the charge. The sigil is the containment vessel. The neither-neither is the accelerator. Together, They replicate the exact dynamic of particle creation from free energy, except the particles being created are events in your life. The word virtual has been doing double duty across this entire framework. Time to make that explicit. In physics, virtual describes particles whose existence theorists infer but cannot directly detect. They exist only within their reactions, and only the products of those reactions present themselves to instruments. Virtual particles pop out of the vacuum to transmit forces within systems whose actual components are elementary, meaning they have no internal parts to adjust. They cannot adapt to their changing relationship, so the vacuum adapts for them. In sorcery, virtual describes two things. First, a seemingly random event that injects meaning into a human interaction, an omen, a synchronicity, spawned from the unconscious minds of the participants by energy blocked from release through their refusal to acknowledge the tension's source. The event has no rational connection to the interaction. Those bound to reasonableness will insist it carries no meaning at all, even though it resolves a specific tension in a decisive way. Second, the mental form, potential but not yet substantiated, which a sorcerer defines in mind and then energizes so it will actualize as the result of conjuration. Both the sorcerer and the physicist share one characteristic that Mace found striking: randomness. Apparent randomness. In the accelerator, physicists can tune the energy to improve the chances of specific particle production, but no specific reaction is ever certain. The roulette wheel spins. Which virtual form the energy fills, which particle emerges, remains probabilistic. In the same way, conjurers can specify their desires so they don't backfire or misfire or bewilder, but the events that result will still appear spontaneous, unpredictable, fleeting. Just as with Jung and his patient, the sorcerer works and waits for some causal event, a scarab at the window, that appears by chance but carries the momentum of the working. And like pi mesons created in the accelerator, these events carry strong force. But if left to themselves, they vanish in an instant, leaving only memories vague like the ghosts of departed neutrinos. You have to grab them fast. There's one more law operating across the entire virtual spectrum, and Spare made it the cornerstone of his system. He called it the dual principle. For every force, an equal and opposite response. For every particle, an antiparticle. For every truth, an equal and opposite truth. In biology, life and death and their biochemical cycles keep nature in balance. In quantum mechanics, the opposition of charge, every electron has its positron, means the products of free energy will always possess electrical neutrality and an equivalence of matter and antimatter. In human affairs, the same balance asserts itself whether you acknowledge it or not. For every action, a reaction. For every exaltation, a correction. This is not a moral principle. It's a mechanical one, and it has direct consequences for anyone attempting sorcery. The dual principle means you risk the least when you incorporate the necessary dualities into the operation of what you wish to occur. You risk the most when you exalt one pole of a duality while repressing or ignoring the other. By doing so, you defy the balance of power that pervades the web of nature and invite Nemesis to grace you with her care. In practical terms, this produces Mace's most useful rules for conjuration. Don't try to get something for nothing. If you conjure for money without offering equivalent value, talent, labor, ideas, you'll actualize your virtual status as an insurance beneficiary or an heir, probably in a way you won't enjoy. Instead, conjure for some talent in keeping with your true nature and the ideas and opportunities you need to market it. Don't conjure a specific person into your bed. You risk forging a magical link with someone destined to despise you. Instead, conjure for a compatible partner with whom you can have a reciprocal relationship. Don't send malign energy against your enemy. They'll use it as a rope to pull upon or a straw to suck. Better to wait for them to make their move than use the energy they've supplied to better your own position. Every one of these rules follows directly from the dual principle. Conjure for nothing, and the void conjures back. Target a specific person, and you've pinned your working to a pole that generates its opposite. Send force against an enemy, and you've handed them the means to respond. The sorcerer who understands virtual mechanics doesn't fight the balance, they build it into the design. Selection over struggle. You don't force outcomes. You define the form precisely enough that when free energy fills it, the actualization promotes your purpose without generating a catastrophic equal and opposite blowback. The elegant spell isn't the one with the most power. It's the one with the cleanest symmetry. So let's compress the full operation. 1. Identify your desire, specific and balanced by what you're willing to give. The dual principle starts here. 2. Sentence, duplicate letters removed, monogram constructed, your sigil, opaque, sealed. 3. Memorize it and forget it. No fantasizing, no daydreaming, every conscious thought bleeds the charge. 4. Neither. Truth against truth until the belief annihilates and the energy floats free. 5. At peak intensity, visualize the sigil, pour everything through it. When the energy exhausts, banish. 6. And this is the step most practitioners miss. Watch for the virtual event. It will look like coincidence, a door that opens for a moment, a conversation that shifts, an opportunity that appears from nowhere. Like pi mesons, these carry strong force but decay fast. When the scarab hits your window, grab it. On February 15, 1988, Stephen Mace placed 5 books on a shelf and Richard Feynman died. The man who invented the diagrams that map how virtual particles transfer force. Gone on the same day, his work became the backbone of a sorcerous framework. Mace swore he didn't know Feynman was sick. He found out from the obituary 2 days later. A coincidence, the materialists would say. An omen, the mystics would reply. Virtual mechanics says both are wrong, and both are right. It was a tension resolving itself. A form filling. An event spawned from a layer behind the visible, where the patterns that give shape to this world wait unfilled for the energy to bring them through. The question was never whether this mechanism exists. The physicists proved that decades ago, virtual particles mediate every force interaction in the universe. The question is whether it scales. Whether the same dynamic that spawns photons from the vacuum also spawns beetles at windows and cracks in bookcases and omens at bookstores. Mace spent 40 years arguing that it does. Spare spent his life exploiting it. Jung documented it without understanding the mechanism. The framework is here. The protocol is here. The only variable left is you. So here's what I want to know. What tension in your life has been building, unresolved, unacknowledged, unable to discharge through normal means? And what virtual event might be waiting right now for enough energy to actualize? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone.